Good morning and welcome on this wintry day to our celebration of Buddha's birthday. And welcome to those who have already joined us via Zoom. The program will be the nuns will do some chanting, and then we'll have talks by Betty Yeoh and Pravrajika Sridharaprana. So I'll invite the nuns now to come and do the chant.
Maya sutavara gautamam shuddhodhana priya siddhartham. Maya sutavara gautamam shuddhodhana priya siddhartham. Kapilavastu putakaram gopavallabha shri buddham veda vidamvara premamayam satya gunakara amitabham deenadayamaya deva devam Karuna Sagara Kalyanam Janma Jara Vyadhi Nirjitam Kanta Sukha Griha Varjitam Tivrata Klesha Svikrita Nitya Bodhi Sudha Prapitam Jayatu Jayatu Deva Amitabham Jayatu Jayatu Deva Amitabham Jayatu Jayatu Deva Amitabham Jayatu Jayatu Deva Amitabham Shakya Tilaka Kula Shobhitam Himsavrata Dvija Duri Kritam Prema Milana Pritisthapitam Sarva Bhute Vibhuvyapitam Nirvana Tattva Subodhakaram Tapadahana Sukha Vidhayakam Prema Dharani Talasinchita Maitri Karuna Rasa Manditam Ashtamarga Yoga Darshitam Jnana Nidana Shubha Gotitam Shuddha Buddha Puta Tathagatam Mangalakara Jaya Nanditam Jayatu Jayatu Deva Tathagatam Jayatu Jayatu Deva Tathagatam Jayatu Jayatu Deva Tathagatam Jayatu Jayatu Deva Tathagatam Yajna Vidhi Shruti Ninditam Devaya Jana Pashudarshitam Vihaga Vedana Bhayamochita Dayaghana Yogi Vara Pujitam Purnamasi Shubha Punyadinam Vaishakhi Titi Gata Nirvanam Mahaparinirvana Lagnakara Jaya 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 Deva Shri Buddham Dina Sharana Vibho Namamyaham Tapashamana Prabho Bhajamyaham Prema Lalita Natha Janamyaham Shanti Nilaya Rupa Vadamyaham Jayatu Jayatu Deva Shri Buddham. 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 Jayatu Jayatu Deva Amitabham. Jayatu Jayatu Deva Tathagatam. Jayatu Jayatu Deva Shri Buddham. Jayatu Jayatu Deva Shri Buddham.
Now I'll invite our dear friend and long-time member and supporter, Betty Yeoh, to give her talk.
Good morning and welcome to Vedanta Hall. Today we are all here to celebrate the birthday of Siddhartha Gautama, often referred to as the Buddha, the awakened and enlightened one. According to history, he was born in an Indian prince in Lumbini, India, which is now known as Nepal, to royal parents of the Sakya clan. It was said that he led a very sheltered and protected life behind the palace walls, never seeing any tragedy or human suffering, until one day he decided to wander outside the palace walls with his bodyguard. What he saw changed his whole outlook of life and understanding about what life was all about. For the first time in his life, he saw scenes of people who were suffering from old age, sickness and disease, death and dying, which was kept from him behind the palace walls. At the same time, he also noticed an ascetic sitting in meditation at peace with himself and the world. He was so moved with compassion by the sight before him, he decided to leave his palace, wife and child, in search of the answer to end all suffering that life brings. That is why he's referred to as the compassionate Buddha for his great sacrifice. In undertaking a spiritual life, what really matters is that our path must be connected to our heart. For where does love and compassion lies, but in the heart? Mother Teresa puts it this way: in this life, we cannot always do great things, but we can always do small things with great love. Letting go is a central theme in Buddhism practice, as we see the brevity of life. When we get to the end of life, love is the source of all energy to create and connect. If we act without a connection to the heart, even the greatest things in our life becomes meaningless and barren. Buddhist tradition teaches its followers to regard all life as precious. In Buddhist practice, one is urged to live well by reflecting on one's death. The traditional meditation for this purpose is to sit quietly and sense the tentativeness of life. To close your eyes and to feel the mortality of this human body that you have been given. Letting go and moving through life from one change to another brings about the the maturing of our spiritual being. To love freely and to love well without attachment requires that we recognize that in the final analysis, we do not possess anything, not even our bodies, and that we are just passing through. The difficulty is that we think we have time, but do we? The name Buddha means one who is aware, and it is this experience that is at the very heart of Vipassana or insight meditation. It offers a practice that can open us to see clearly our bodies, our hearts, our minds, and the world around us to develop a wise and compassionate way to relate to and understand them all. This is not an Asian practice, but one by which anyone can awaken to the truth of life and become free. The path of awakening begins with a step that Buddha calls right understanding. It has two parts. Firstly, it asks, what do we really care about in this life? Our lives are quite short. We can be complacent and let our lives disappear in a dream, or we become aware. At the time of death, people who live consciously will ask two questions about their life. Did I live wisely? Did I love well? This is the start of right understanding, seeing that our lives are impermanent and fleeting, and taking into account what matters most. Our hardships cannot be solved by a change of government or new economic policies alone. War and starvation are not solved by economics and politics. Their source is fear, prejudice, and greed in the human heart, and the solution also lies in the human heart. Right understanding also requires that we recognize and understand the law of karma. The term karma refers to the law of cause and effect. It means that what we do and how we act create our future experiences. Someone once asked a Vipassana teacher if she could explain karma simply. Her answer, sure. Karma means you do not get away with nothing. Know that spiritual practice is not a mindless repetition of ritual or prayer. It works through consciously realizing the law of cause and effect and aligning our lives to it. Spiritual transformation is a profound process that needs repeated discipline and a genuine training in order to let go of our old habits of mind and find and sustain a new way of seeing. A very renowned Thai meditation master, the late Ajahn Chah, described the commitment as taking the one seat. He would say, go to the room, put one chair in the center, take that one seat in the center of the room, open the doors and windows and see who comes to visit. You will witness all kinds of scenes and actors, all kinds of temptations and stories, everything imaginable. Your only job is to stay in your seat. You will see it all arise and pass, and out of this, wisdom and understanding will come. Ajahn Chah's description is both literal and metaphorical. Taking that one seat describes two related aspects of spiritual work. Outwardly, it means selecting the practice and the teacher among all the possibilities. And inwardly, it means having the determination to stick with the practice through whatever difficulties and doubts arise, till you come to true clarity and understanding. We discover our capacity to open and encompass all and reject nothing. For the Buddha, the whole world arises in emptiness, and everything in it is connected. Modern life can be at times be rife with stress, whether about work, relationships, money, or a whole range of other matters. Fortunately, Buddhist teachings can help us deal with the stress, hectic goals and driven life with more of a sense of peace, love, and compassion. In this awakened and compassionate consciousness, the whole world becomes our seat. Where else can we go for our awakening but right here and right now? Thank you.
Buddham sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam gacchami, sangham sharanam gacchami. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in his teachings. I take refuge in his order. Bhagavan Buddha. Bhagavan Buddha is the second greatest teacher, because all of them are great, okay, great teacher that India has produced. The first being Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the dynamic, and he is influencing us even now. And second, Bhagavan Sri Buddha. Buddha exemplifies in his person the ideal of the Upanishads and the man of steady wisdom, what the Gita calls Sthita Prajna. So his life, approximately, he was born in 563 BC in Kapilavastu, near the bordering India and Nepal, to his parents, Shuddhodana and Maya Devi. And when Maya Devi once dreamt that a beautiful white elephant approaching her and entering in her being, then she had conceived the great being, the Purushottama, what the Sanskrit calls. And when she was in her confinement, I think before she left for her parental home, on the way, she delivered the Buddha, who is supposed to live all his life in forest, most of the time, in the Lumbini forest. Lumbini was a place in between. So there she gave birth to the child, and within 7 days, she passed away. And when the time came to christen the baby, 3 astrologers came and predicted the child either will be the conqueror of the world or the redeemer of the world. Of course, the father wanted him to be a Chakravarti, emperor of the world, and he asked how he could make it. then they said there are 4 things which will impel him to give up the world. So if that could be avoided, maybe he will become the world conqueror, a Chakravarti. So they had given him, the father. So the father very clearly steered away his son from all these ugly scenes, made sure that nothing negative will be seen by his son, and protected him. I believe he had 3 palaces. Even the climate should not be weighing on him, like cold or summer, extreme heat, extreme cold, rainy, nothing, no discomfort should be there. And had employed 40,000 dancing girls to entertain the nothing. With all that, sometimes the young man would go into deep within himself. Just abruptly he would walk away and wonder quietly. And at the age of 16, his father wanted him to get married. So there was, in those days, in naturals, you can select. So he brought quite a few maidens and made Buddha to present them some gifts and all that. Very calmly, he did it absolutely without any, expression or anything. He just was supposed to give. Each one came and he gave. Finally came the Yashodhara. Nothing was left. And Buddha he felt embarrassed. There's nothing, I'm so sorry. Isn't there anything for me to give? No, you will not go without. And he got something else. And with great, that was the first sentence he spoke. And he gave to her. So the news went. So this was the only person to whom the son had spoken. So the father went and inquired the girl, and then found that father had some, conditions. So he has to show himself that his valor, and then. So Shuddhodana was very disappointed because he knew the saintly nature of his son. So how could he? But Buddha, seeing the father's reaction, he inquired and found, no, you arrange, I will do it. And he exhibited all the valor, what was needed for the contest, and he won her. So that means to say spiritual life is not that something you can't do, can't get it, so you're going from the back door of the life. No. If Buddha wished, he could have been an emperor, he could have done anything. So it's a fulfillment of life. Only when you have fulfilled certain obligations and you're fit, really fit, only then one can go for higher life. So it's not a pessimistic approach to spiritual life. So Buddha he could have done everything, and he did it, and he won her with his effort. And what a wonderful wife she was. Such a beautiful girl, majestic as a queen of heaven, cheerful, full of dignity, exceeding grace. And we know she bore him a son by name Rahula. And so still, Buddha had not seen anything outside his palace. Wherever he was, if at all, if he had to go, he had to tell early enough, and then he will be given a chance to go. So suddenly one day he said, no, I'm going out. Father didn't have much time, I think so. So anyway, or what the destiny would say, we do not know. So all those things, scenes which were not supposed to be seen by him, was seen. Old age, disease, death. So death, the last. And then he was wondering, he was so naive. He asked his chagitar, Channa, why is this man like this? tottering. He doesn't have strength. Oh, this is old age. He hadn't seen. I don't know whether his father Sridharaprana must have dyed his hair or what. I don't know. Father at least must have grown old. But I didn't observe. Anyway, and then sickness. Because he had kept himself, son in such good, no cold, no headache, nothing. So healthy. He was. The book says that Buddha was exceedingly handsome, very charming, strong. So he hadn't seen a sick person. So he was wondering, what is this? The sickness. Does sickness come to everybody? To me, yes, of course it will come to you. To my Yashodhara, yes, of course. For my father, everybody, without exception. That was a revelation for him. And finally, the death. Then he wondered, how can one really enjoy this body when it is subjected to all this? We remember in the Upanishads, Nachiketa saying, Korameta, who can enjoy? Oh, Antaka, death, you will be visiting. This body is subject to all this. And such a body, who is going to enjoy? You wanted me to live for 100 years. What's the purpose of 100 years? One day or the other day, you will be visiting me. So, see, the Upanishadic wisdom. So finally, the next day, he wanted to say, is there anything left for me to learn? So he went and he saw the serene monk sitting quietly. So that means I can get rid of this. I can also get out. So with this conviction, he came. When he came home, he got the news that a son was born. He was not excited. He said, one more bondage. So anyway, that night he decided to go. And he asked his charioteer and his wonderful horse, Kantaka, to be there ready. And he had decided. And then before going, he wanted to have a final look. See, discernment and detachment is there, but not indifference. There's indifference and detachment is two different things. A brute can be indifferent, but a man of compassion, he can be detached, but he cannot be indifferent. So at the last look he wanted to have, see his wife and child, wanted to take the baby and kiss it, but the mother had tenderly put her hand on the boy's head and was sleeping. So that would disturb, and that means his plan will be disturbed. So he just walked out of the home and drove away to the forest early in the morning. Far they had reached. Then he exchanged his garments and cut off mercilessly the hair. And his first concern was to find out a teacher who could teach him what he has to do. So he sought out the well-known teachers of the time. It's a pity that he couldn't get a proper Brahmagnani. You can imagine how down the level spiritual thing had gone. You know, it's like a wave, goes high and comes down. So it's in the lower ebb. At that time, not a single Brahmagnani was there who could convince Buddha the impersonal aspect of Brahman. The teacher, whoever he taught him, I don't know whether he was not able to teach or whether the Buddha was not able to grasp it. I don't say Buddha wouldn't be able to grasp, because he was a very intellectual person, man of reasoning. But anyway, it was his, I don't know, good luck or ill luck, because if had Buddha come across Bhagavad Gita, Buddhism wouldn't have been today. But such is not the divine plan. He would have been confined to Hinduism itself. And what would the Southeast Asians would have done? What the modern Americans, Westerners would have done if Buddha had confined himself to Hinduism? Maybe seeing all that, he didn't get Bhagavad Gita because Bhagavad Gita was then in the dense forest of Mahabharata. It was the genius of Shankara to bring it out and make it an independent scripture. But Buddha was before Shankara. So he didn't get it. And that's not only that, Buddha was born to make an independent way without the authority of the scriptures. Maybe so many things are involved. We are nobody's to judge it. But just I was just thinking in these lines. Isn't it? It's pity that he didn't get, because all that he had to go through, suffering, it would have been easy for him had he got Bhagavad Gita. The middle path. See, Yukta Ahara Viharasya, Sri Krishna has already told. So you see, anyway, that's how it is. He's born for something new. And 6 years, at the age of 29, he left home. 6 years he spent in solitude, and 45 years of his life he spent in the service of the humankind. And he went to the teachers, they couldn't, but he learned much from them also. And he was against privileges, priestcraft, and rituals. These things, not actually the Hinduism itself was the practice. That's how it is. Sri Krishna says, I taught this great teaching in the beginning, and then the yoga was spoiled. How was his yoga got spoiled? By coming into the hands of degenerate people. Ajitendriyanam prapya yogo nashta parantapa. I taught it to Vivaswan and all that. He says, you have been born here, Arjuna says, and you say that you taught it to Vivaswan. How did it? So he says, I have taught this. In course of time, this yoga got spoiled, having come into the hands of degenerate people who have no self-control, who misuse religion. And so finally, and then he couldn't get much. So he thought, okay, let me try someone else. There were 5 ascetics doing Kricha sadhan, austerities. So he joined them, he excelled them. So fasting and all that. So much so, I believe he used to eat 6 grains. And one day he says, he went to touch his stomach and he caught hold of his spine. Just imagine how emaciated the body must have become. And then he went to have his dip in the river and he fell down. Thank God, his people were there. They gave him some hot granules, kanchi something, kanji we say, something hot, and then that survived his life. And then he understood that this is not the right thing. One is indulgence, extreme indulgence, and extreme asceticism. Both won't. Then the middle path. See, Sri Krishna had said, yoga is not for him who sleeps more or who keeps awake. Yoga is not for him who indulges and at the same refrains completely. Yuktahara, who is moderate in eating, sleeping, recreation. To him, the yoga becomes a redeemer, a breaks the sorrow. So finally, he thought he must eat something. And as Providence would do, there was Sujata, the great lady, who had prepared porridge or payasam, pudding, and she brought to offer it to the forest deity and found Buddha under the tree. And mistaking him to be the deity of the forest, she offered. Buddha said, oh, my child, I am no deity. I am an ordinary man like you. But if you give me this, and if I can have this, and whatever merit I get it, you have a share in it. The good lady offered it to him and she went away and Buddha drank. Those 5 ascetics who were with them, they said, look, Gautama is now indulging. He has given up the path of asceticism. So let's leave him and go away. So they went away to Ishipatana. And Buddha said, good, now I will sit. He had been meditating from his childhood. He had some sort of revelations at that time. So he caught hold of those experiences. And now he said, I'm going to sit under this tree. Let my body wither away on the seat. Let it be reduced to mere skin and bones. But I shall not move an inch from here till I gain the highest enlightenment, which is difficult to obtain even after long ages of struggle. So he went, and then when he sat for the meditation, the book says the Mara, the evil one, came to tempt him. But the yoga says these are all in the subconscious mind. The mind brings out, the whole universe is manakalpita, is the projection of the mind, Shankara says. There is nothing called as world outside. It's within. No mind, no world. So here Buddha is ready to kill the mind itself, to remove the mind itself. So the mind offers resistance. So it brings out all hobgoblins, all natural calamities. It's all made. The mind makes it. But Buddha knew this. He kept quiet, just observed. Nothing could make. And he had such great spiritual energy, power was there, that all those Mara's power wouldn't come within the circle of his spiritual vibrations or whatever you say. So nothing disturbed. And then Mara said, it is my right to do this and to keep the people down to earth. Why are you obstructing my freedom? Then Buddha said, I believe, he kept his right hand on the earth, on the ground, and it touched the ground. Then the earth declared that I bear witness to you. So with this, Mara's plans, everything went away. And Buddha's meditation grew deep and deep and deep. That was again Vaishakhi Purnima. He was born on Vaishakhi Purnima. And this was also the wonderful Vaishakhi Purnima, mid-May. And then at the early mornings, as the day was breaking, Buddha was in deep meditation. And he came out, I believe, 49 days, 7 weeks, he was immersed in the bliss. He just couldn't contain the joy of the realization or the illumination he had. 7 days, he didn't move, he sat. And then he got up, walked up to the other tree, again sat there. Again, he came back to this tree. So he's walking up and down, from this tree to that tree, from this tree to that tree. And then 7 weeks, then he had a doubt. And then this is also the last play of the mind or Mara, because Mara is in the mind. So now you have got this realization. Who will understand this? Nobody will understand your realization. Men will not appreciate it. So why bother all this? So you better enter the nirvana. So Mara will not have any problem. He will have everybody under his control. So that's what he wanted to do. But Buddha thought there might be somebody who can understand, who may not be as, whose mind will not be as dirty that these truths cannot enter. The taints may be less. Many may be there. So someone or the other might be there. If you, not the whole world will listen to me, but some will at least listen. So I can speak to them. So with that, the mind got settled. Or the Mara walked out from once for all from the life of Buddha, because he became fixed. This is what I'm going to do. Not that everyone tomorrow itself I'll be having a big crowd to follow, but whoever listened to him. And he said, open are the doors to immortality. Those who have Shraddha, conviction, listen to it. And you free your will. The will has to be freed. The will is under the control of drives, emotions, desires. Such a will has no strength. So the will has to be freed, and there the truth will be revealed. So this is how he started. And so he thought, whom shall I teach? He thought of his two teachers who had taught him. He was very grateful to them for whatever they had taught. But on introspection, he found one had passed away 7 days before and one had passed away the night before. Unlucky people. Anyway, finally he thought, he remembered those 5 people. So he walked 114 miles from Bihar, from Gaya to Saranath. He came to know that they are in Saranath. So he came there, and these 5 people were there, and they saw him there. Gautama is coming. After giving himself to a life of indulgence, is coming. Let's not pay any reverence or anything to him. So they thought. But as soon as Buddha came, without their knowledge, they got up and bowed to him. And they invited him to sit next to him, calling him, addressing him as friend. Buddha had said, I am no friend. I am the awakened. I am here with you, here to give you the knowledge. If you want, if you are, committed to it, then you will be getting the truth. You will be realizing the truth in this very life. So he gave him the 4 noble truths. We know that there exists sorrow, the cause of the sorrow, and the cessation of the sorrow, and the path to it. Birth is a sorrow, pain. Such is the thing. We know every child which comes to this world cries. But we are very happy. Immediately we wrap the baby and give it the normal temperature what it had, and then forgets. So we forget the suffering we went through the womb. So there's a temple in India, I believe, I do not know, where when you go to the temple, you have to, we go circumambulate the temple. It is made in such a way that you enter, literally you have to crawl like how you were in the mother's womb. So when you try to cover that place and come, you understand how painful it is. Just to recapture that suffering. It's designed, I believe. I can't remember where actually I read it. So, we forget it. The moment we come to the world, we forget everything. And so is all sorts of pain. So we need to understand there is suffering, and suffering so much. And Swami Vivekananda used to say, the happiness, joy, bliss comes wearing the crown of misery. But we don't see the crown. We only see the happiness, joy. And then we are in trouble. So we need to understand that there is suffering, and its causes Trishna, Tanha, what Buddha calls it, desires. But whereas Vedanta would say ignorance, because with the ignorance comes the desire. Avidya, Kama, Karma. That's how the Vedanta says. Ignorance of one's divine nature. I take myself to be the psychophysical organism, and then I want to satisfy it. And for that, I work, and the chain starts. Cause and effect karma. So this ignorance or this tanha, this desires can be overcome. It can be overcome. Not that we have to be always subject to this. There's no way. No, there is. How? Through proper disciplined life when we lead, we can overcome. And that is the eightfold path. And for all this, before that, Buddha always insisted the middle path. Strike a balance between activity, inactivity. All that, indulgence and asceticism. So strike a balance. And another important thing which he always says is association. Association is very important. What the Vedanta calls, or the Bhakti called Sadhu Sangha or the Holy Company. So Holy Company is a big help. You see people and then you get strength. Yeah, if I also practice, maybe I will also get. So these two things are important. That is the middle path and Holy Company or good association. And with that, Buddha says the right views. Very important. When we want to take something, the life has to have some sort of philosophy, and that philosophy, because life has to be guided. If not, we will haphazardly, we cannot live. And what those ideas are, we should be very clear about it. So you need to reason out. So intellect should be very clear. So if a view, by adapting that type of life, if it can bring good to me and to others, Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya, then that path is the right path. Just because a scripture has said, just because it's a national ideal, or just because somebody is forcing you, don't. You reason out. Always Buddha stressed on reason out. And see if it does good to many, good to you and to many, then that's the right path. So right views, right intent, that is single-mindedness. You have to invest all your energy. So we have to fix the priorities. This is what I want. Do I really want it? Then only we can give the whole mind. So single-mindedness, the right intent and right speech. Right speech. Overnight, also from tomorrow, I will never speak a lie. That can't be. People have been doing all that. So let's watch our speeches. Let's watch how many times I deviate from this and then improve. Find out my weaknesses, where they are, and then follow it. Then right conduct, the behavior, and the right livelihood. Livelihood. To live, we adapt an occupation. It's not the be all and end all. It's an means for an end. So that should not interfere with my aspirations. Everything should be, helpful to my aspiration. My occupation should be such that it will not have, it will not be, it will be congenial, it will be helpful for my aspirations. Then right effort. Constant effort is needed. So the mind should take interest in it. The ideal should be, the mind should be able to accept it. Where whatever we like, we think. Isn't it? Nobody needs to tell us. If we love somebody, we remember the person always, constantly. But nobody has to remind us. So like that, if the ideal is very clear and we are intent on our ideal, then we will not deviate from it. And even the 100 failures will not lessen our enthusiasm. So we will be determined to do it. That perseverance will be there, that right effort. And then right mindfulness, which is very, very important. Every moment to understand that we are not deviating from our spiritual pursuit, that introspection. That's very important. And of course, the right concentration, which the Raja Yoga gives you in detail. Buddha has inculcated many things from the Raja Yoga of the Patanjali, because he had studied, he had lived with them teachers. And this is the basic, the fundamental teachings of Buddha. So on this holy day, may Buddha's blessings be on all of us, so that we may put right effort and realize our ideal. Namaste.